Alright, episode 3 of Escaflowne. This is a long one. Also, this episode is fairly lengthy. Penis joke! Ha! So I mentioned that I made a whole big batch of intros right at the beginning before I ever started on the series itself. That was, obviously, while I was using ULead. This is the first episode that I did in Sony Vegas. So here's a bit of trivia for you. The way to tell whether I did an intro in ULead or Vegas is watch the logo here. See how the words The Abridged Series fade in there? If they fade in, it's Vegas. If they do the effect where the letters drop into place, it's ULead, because that's a macro that's built into ULead. I could have done the same thing with Vegas, but it would have been a lot more work, so I didn't bother. So if anybody cares, that's how you can tell which intros were from that first batch that I just banked for later. So, this is one long, boring, kind of terrible episode. Why is it so long? Because I had to introduce, like, every character besides Merle, Vaughn, and Hitomi. Here's Alan.
Another one? Man, I am so sick of you pretty boys getting all up in my shonen action! Snickety! It would be a pity to kill you before you even get a
I wasn't really sure whether to bring back the whole pacifism attack thing here, because, I don't know, referencing Gantz just seemed weird in Escaflowne because they're such different shows. But I couldn't think of anything better to do. Generally speaking, I associated the Darth Vader theme with Falcon, not with DeLandau. But since this is pretty much the introduction of their big-ass airship, floating fortress thing, yeah, it's okay.
I just really like doing that.
So 3 cheers for Kaiser's DeLandau voice.
I love my life.
DeLandau. I do not believe Emperor.
He took a while to get into character the first couple of times he did that voice.
The Emperor is a crazy
old
man.
Well, when you listen to it now, it pretty much sounds about the same right from the beginning as it did towards the end.
Get me out of here! I'm trapped in this bloody great fishbowl!
This was a good scene.
Yes, my lord. That
I do love Folk and Dornkirk scenes, which is why I did so many of them. Also, because they're all recycled footage, so I can make them go on as long or as short as I want, and put them in anywhere.
My lord, that's such a vague request.
But yeah, you can hear my Falcon voice and my Dornkirk voice both changed a bit. But the DeLandau voice stayed pretty stable, so that was pretty cool.
Yes, once again, if my lord could perhaps be a bit more specific.
So my
I think it's in Astoria.
my Falcon voice was vaguely was supposed to be vaguely Vaderish. Obviously I don't use any kind of voice processing on it, and my voice sounds nothing like James Earl Jones. It's not like it sounds particularly Vaderish, but it sounds like somebody doing an impression of Darth Vader. Just so very forcedly deep and dramatic. And Dornkirk, I was just tickled pink that somebody actually recognized this in the comments. Dornkirk was based on, in the first Timmy episode of South Park, they have Phil Collins, and do just the most ridiculous voice for him, which sounds nothing like Phil Collins actually sounds, of course, because it's so crazy and exaggerated. And that is what my Dornkirk voice is based on.
And have you seen the king lately?
Because it's a terrible tragedy, isn't it? Falcon!
Wonder how his daughters got so
It's kind of loud and tone deaf and Britishy.
Crossing your country's borders unannounced, so will you please give me my gun back?
And speaking of Alan's voice, that was not my original idea for his voice. I was originally going to use that voice for Dryden. Because I had this idea that all Asturians would share a common accent. I thought that was a really neat idea. And it was going to be this, like, really over-the-top, not quite British, but Shakespearean accent, like somebody reciting Shakespeare. I'm Alan Shazar, and I do everything over the top. But I couldn't get enough emotional range out of it, and since he is a major character, I went back on that. And also, it would have been such a hassle getting all the other VAs to try and do something vaguely like that voice for theirs, and yeah, that would have been a bad idea. So I changed my mind on that. Thank God. But then once I changed my mind on that, I realized, well, now I have no idea what to do for Dryden's voice if I'm going to use his voice for Alan. So, which is how I wound up bringing Cheeseman, aka CMJ Samurai, into the picture, but we'll talk about that later.
I also demand that you build a solid gold statue of our emperor in your town square.
Boy,
And it must also be 50 feet tall and breathe fire. And your children must
the lip sync in this episode is pretty bad because I was still getting used to Sony Vegas, and so I was. It's not that I couldn't do good lip flaps, because it really wasn't that different, but just that I had so much other crap to deal with, editing-wise, that I just didn't want to take the trouble. So I was lazy. Also, I didn't... This episode moves so slow, and it's so just kind of dry and dull. And I think about half of that is just the editing. I think I really could have... Just little things, just tightened it up, especially where the pacing is concerned. Cut the silence between lines down a little bit and got the timing a little more snappy, and I think it really would have worked out a lot better, but I didn't take the trouble, and it shows. Oh well. I couldn't help. I just figured out how to use masking. Well, because I wanted to do that. I could have done that unstable mutation shot using the same weird workaround that I used for U-Lead to make up for the lack of a masking feature in the version I was using. But I figured, well, I've got this new software, I might as well figure out how to use it. So I figured out how to do that thing.
Must have taken a wrong turn at
because I knew that I wanted to do that gag, and then I was having so much fun with it that I said, oh, well, shit, now I just can't resist, I've got to do something fancy. So I did this. Worked some frickin' 30 Rock in there. Oh god, masking was such a godsend in this series. Because, I mean, obviously I could use it to do flashy stuff like that, but I also used it for so much just subtle stuff later that you wouldn't even notice. But it would have looked so rough and so terrible if I'd done the same thing without masking. So pleased that I switched over for the rest of the series.
What's the other thing? Be annoyed.
Now I had a cold going into this. I wrote the script and sent it around to everybody, and then got a cold before it came time to actually record my own lines. So that right there, that Vaughn line, was the last one that I recorded, because I added it during the editing phase, and you can definitely hear the raspiness in the throat there. But all the other lines I recorded in a day because I could feel the cold coming on in my throat, and I said, oh, fuck it! I gotta get everything recorded now, or else it'll delay the episode. Which had already been delayed a bit from my learning to use Vegas, so I didn't want to push it back anymore. I think that probably hurts this episode too. Some of the delivery was pretty off, because I just was not feeling at the top of my game when I recorded a lot of my lines. Oh, well, it gets better in the next episode, as I recall. Yeah.